Tim Loggins, have been fighting for gun rights on your own dime in Arkansas for years. Tell us, who is better on gun rights between those two men and why?
Gun Owners of Arkansas endorsed.
Welcome, everyone, from Senate District 28 in Arkansas. We have some really good news for you today that I think will help you make an informed decision on the upcoming runoff of June 21st of this year, 2022. With me, we have our honored and special guest, Tim Loggins, who is with Gun Owners, Executive Vice President of Gun Owners of Arkansas, former law enforcement man, retired, and also Mark Moore, who is the author of several books and a personal friend of mine. He used to run a couple of our statewide campaigns, and he's one of the best policy guys I know as well. He also has a new documentary coming out called Access, and it's about election ballot access for independents and third-party candidates. And welcome, guys. It's good to have you.
Good to be here.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So we'll just get right into it. So, Tim, what do you do? Give us a little bit of background of how long you've been down in Little Rock. What's the ideas of what's going on in Little Rock? Give us the culture down there. Give us the ideas of, what you've done legislatively in regards to gun rights. And other things too, for that matter.
I'm the Executive Vice President of Gun Owners of Arkansas. We're the largest grassroots organization in Arkansas for gun owners. Have around 25,000 members, which is pretty good reach. Considering we started only 7-8 years ago. Mm-hmm. We advocate for permitless carry and expanding the gun rights and reclaiming the gun rights of Arkansans. Happy to say that we are a permitless carry state. No permit is required to carry a gun in Arkansas, concealed or unconcealed. And we've been fighting for that since 2013. Personally, I've been fortunate enough to write some resolutions and some legislation that helped expand our gun rights, that was carried by some good legislators and was passed. This past session, I believe I had 4 bills that I was able to author on behalf of gun owners that were passed by the Senate and the House. 3 of those were signed by the governor. He ultimately vetoed one of them, and we could not quite get it overridden. It died in the House. We worked tirelessly down there, and keep in mind, I'm an advocate. I'm not a lobbyist. Just because I love freedom, that's why. And that's the way everyone associated with our organization is. We don't draw a paycheck, we don't take money. We're down there just trying to expand rights for our children and grandchildren.
And thanks for all that you do.
And you've got that, Tim, you've got that says GOA, Gun Owners of Arkansas, but what is your relationship? Some people might think that they're in Gun Owners of America, they're also in Gun Owners of Arkansas, but it's really not the same thing, is it? This is local grassroots stuff.
This is an Arkansas organization that is not affiliated with Gun Owners of America. We do work with Gun Owners of America, but we are separate entities, separate organizations. Where we share common ground, we absolutely respect Gun Owners of America and work with them where we can.
And you have 25,001 members because I signed up yesterday.
Thank you very much. I'm telling you that every $30 makes a difference. I promise.
I'm in.
Right.
But there's another gun rights alleged to be a gun rights organization out there. And many voters feel like they take their cue from this other organization. And of course, I'm speaking of the NRA. I'll just come out and say it. I think the NRA has lost its way. It's no longer really primarily dedicated to preserving gun rights, but it's kind of been bought out by the people it's supposed to be the watchdog over, in my opinion. I'd be interested in your opinion.
I think that the NRA was a very successful organization, and it's a victim of its success. It's become a bureaucracy that is feeding upon itself, that seems to be in business to make money. I know for a fact that the NRA has not been in Arkansas but 3 times in the last 3 sessions. They don't have a grassroots organization. They don't know the Arkansas law. Matter of fact, it was 2020 before they stated that we were permitless carry, and we've been permitless carry since 2013. They're irrelevant in Arkansas. And I think you need only look at the national news of what's going on with with the graft and the money problems and everything that they're going through, that's an indicator of where they're at. They're more about the money than they are the policy. And that's unfortunate, but that's how I feel.
Jim, you have an opinion on this too, if you don't mind getting into trouble, because you had some experience with this back in the day. Was the NRA, were they about advocating gun rights and getting legislators elected that would advocate for gun rights, or was it playing the game? Tell me.
Yeah,
Tell
I
us.
appreciate you asking the question. And my experience, Tim and Mark knows this, in 2004, when we ran against Blanche Lincoln, I think it was Anthony Roulette that told me, he said, look, I want to endorse you. I want to support you. You have a perfect record on gun rights. You have been a Second Amendment stalwart. And he told me, then he said, however, Blanche Lincoln has $6.7 million. It looks like that she's going to win. You only have about 120,000. He actually told me a story where said she was going to support this bill because she knew her constituents in Arkansas would be for it, but because she thought she was safe according to poll numbers, that they went ahead and they said they wanted to give her an F rating, but they went ahead and give her a D rating. And so it came out in the magazine. They would not endorse me. And people don't understand that this is how these organizations work. It's their mode of operation, their modus operandi is what they do is they say, if it's a person that's already in office, because they know the numbers, they know that the incumbents are going to probably get reelected again. And so because they know they're going to get reelected again, they're afraid to speak out against them because they know they may have to work with them next session. So Mark, and you know this because you were there, they didn't endorse me and they gave me an A rating, but they would not come out against Blanche. And so all the news media outlets says, well, Jim, you're conservative, you're for gun rights, you're pro-life. Why are some of these major organizations not endorsing you? And I just said to the media, because they're cowards. And of course, that made headlines all over the place. They were thinking that I was being rude to them, but it's the truth. People don't understand that the NRA has become, it's a huge organization that every time and this goes to what your point is later, Tim, is that anytime there is a bill that it looks like it's good and it sounds like it's good, like enhanced carry, and it sounds like it's going to give them more freedoms, what they do is they literally use that as a fundraising mechanism. And they send out a letter and say, help us pass this. But then we thinking that, and these people that do this, they're good citizens. They are trying to do what's right. They're trying to say, we want to keep our freedoms, but they don't realize for lack of a better term, I guess they're being sold out for money. Wayne LaPierre's fundraising, Wayne LaPierre's salary has been like as much as high as $5 million. And it's over, I believe, $1 million a year now. I'm ready to start an organization like that. How about you? Of course, Tim, how much do you guys make in this grassroots effort for freedom?
I don't have the financials with me. We're a 501c3 and a 501c4.
No, I mean your salary.
Oh, I make zero.
And the president?
Zero.
Zero. How about any gas stipends?
We don't accept any money, period. Every nickel that we get is used to help with legislation, help endorse good candidates. We don't take a dime for anything.
Good to know.
And I had heard that, and that's why I wanted to spend my $30 on Gun Owners of Arkansas and not the NRA. I've seen it. They just want to endorse a bunch of people that are going to win so they can turn around their fundraising letter and say, see, these people that I endorsed, we endorsed, they won. So we're so effective by endorsing a bunch of people that we're going to win anyway, not taking the tough stands. And then they use that to say they're being effective. And the problem I have with it is too many Arkansas voters will look at that and say, oh, this politician got an NRA rating. He must be great on guns.
Mm-hmm.
No, the NRA doesn't understand Arkansas gun laws. They don't understand the nuances of these things. We're about to talk about these bills that Senator Ballinger sponsored that are allegedly gun rights bills and are nothing of the sort. I don't think they even know those nuances. It's got a good name on it. We can use it for fundraising. And I no longer put credence in NRA endorsements. Now, Gun Owners of America endorsements, yes.
Absolutely.
Gun Owners of Arkansas endorsements, yes. I'm not saying trust nobody. I'm saying use common sense. The guys driving around in stretch limousines in Washington, D.C., are, they're not the ones looking out for you. They're the ones that the system has captured some of the people who are supposed to watch the system. It's a
So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to agree with you, but I'm going to disagree as well. I do believe that NRA understands Arkansas law, but I think that they are supportive of the permit system because that's how they continue to raise money. If everyone was a permitless carry state, there would be no purpose for the NRA. So they help write legislation that promotes the permits. They create the problem because they think they're the solution.
Right.
So I think it's a little more, it's a little more dirty than what you're saying. It's not that they're clueless. It's just their agenda isn't truly a freedom agenda.
No, it's about money. It's
I wasn't
about
going to give
money.
them the benefit of a doubt, but maybe you're in a better position to say than me. But you know, as long as we're there, I think, you know, there's a state Senate runoff right now. Bryan King, former state Senator Bryan King, is running against State Senator Bob Ballinger. Bob Ballinger has got the NRA endorsement. You, Tim Loggins, have been fighting for gun rights on your own dime in Arkansas for years. Tell us, who is better on gun rights between those two men and why?
Gun Owners of Arkansas endorsed Bryan King enthusiastically. We believe that someone that has the courage of their conviction should be rewarded. Too often the voters are complaining that their elected officials are out of touch or they're not keeping their promises. And then you have someone like Bryan King that keeps them, and they punish him because of slick campaign ads, misleading things. I mean, we weren't going to get involved initially in Senate District 28 because there were like 6 candidates. We wanted the people of that district to be able to kind of narrow the field down. We were pretty sure it was going to be a runoff. But we got hearing some very negative things going on. And quite honestly, Bryan King's the man. He has our endorsement because he has the courage of his convictions. And from a gun owner's perspective, yeah, that's who you need to vote for.
But Senator Ballinger's supporters are running around talking about how he sponsored such an incredibly wonderful gun rights bill. Now,
Which one would that be?
something you tell me about Senator, please give us your inside and expert opinion on the quality of Senator Ballinger's gun legislation, because he's saying it's great. His supporters are saying it's great. If we just read the name, the title sounds great. Let's dig a little deeper.
I'm going to be honest with you. Senator Ballinger, I know him very well. Known him for several years, knowing him and Bryan both. Senator Ballinger has written some of the most egregious gun laws in Arkansas history.
What? Is most egregious?
Egregious.
That's what I said.
Terrible, horrible.
Terrible. Horrible.
And that is because he doesn't understand, or he doesn't listen to his constituents. He doesn't understand the Second Amendment, doesn't understand the process, or does understand the process and embraces it.
I believe that Bob is well-intentioned, but his bills are so poorly written that they rarely reflect his true intent. For example, the one bill you're probably talking about is the enhanced carry law, which supposedly gives someone that is willing to pay extra money, which I completely oppose. So if you buy a permit and then you pay for another permit and you get some more training, we'll allow you to carry in more places. That's the premise of the bill. It's 573-322. Yes, sir.
Can I hit on that real quickly? And this is what I think that people are missing out, because I've been saying this, Tim, for years, that anytime that the government makes you pay a fee to do what is constitutionally already allowed to be able to have the right to defend yourself, you're basically infringing upon my right to defend myself, because you're making me pay a fee, have classes. And according to the Constitution, everybody has a right to defend themselves. But
keep in mind, Arkansas was a permitless carry state whenever enhanced carry was passed. So you didn't need a permit in Arkansas to carry a weapon anyway, but it perpetuated the lie that you did. It helped reinforce that misinformation. And it also chose a special class. Gun Owners of Arkansas is pretty convinced, and we plan on challenging this law in court. We're pretty convinced that the enhanced carry law is unconstitutional. We believe it's a violation of Article 2, Section 5 and Article 2, Section 18. You can't create, the legislature, specifically in Article 2, Section 18, cannot create a special class of citizens by law. And that's what the enhanced has done. With all that said, even if that's what it did, but it doesn't do that. There's so many contradictions in the law I tell people whenever you get an enhanced, get an attorney. I'm justified in saying that because it's been challenged in court 3 times because municipalities and state agencies, specifically the Arkansas Game and Fish, are ignoring it. And so far, judges haven't made the state or the cities live up to what Bob said it would do. I encourage you, read 5-73-322. That is the statute. If you have the enhanced carry permit, the proprietor or person in control of that building or area can put a no-go gun sign up, or just simply tell you, I don't want a gun here. And although you've paid for that extra permit, you can't carry a weapon there. So it doesn't do what it purports to do. But let me finish this and say where it becomes really, really bad at. Bob also wrote the Stand Your Ground bill, which sounds good. I testified against it this last session. One provision of Stand Your Ground says in order to stand your ground, you must be lawfully present. He failed to define what that means. Now, how do these two laws tie together? If you in any way violate the concealed handgun carry license statutes, if you walk past a no gun sign, if you're attending a church and you didn't ask permission of your pastor and you have a permit, an enhanced permit, and a mass shooter comes in and starts shooting, you're not lawfully present because you have the permit and you can't stand your ground. And now they're going to try to charge you with murder. The statutes are poorly written. They're bad statutes. It's bad law. Both of those need to be repealed.
So are you saying prior to Senator Ballinger, like putting boxes or limits on our rights to self-defense, it was more open and undefined? And what he really did with his bill was not expand our rights, but make it more complicated where we never really know?
I'm a firm believer that a bill should be readable by the citizens of Arkansas. Me as the average person should be able to look at a bill, look at the law and say, it says this so that I understand what is prohibited. When you read the Stand Your Ground bill, when you read the enhanced carry bill, your average citizen doesn't know what they're saying because judges and lawyers don't even know what they're saying. That's just bad lawmaking. Whatever his intent was, he's confused the issue. There's people that think they can carry in certain places and they can't.
But they could before.
That they could before, yes.
Well, even now, if you don't have a permit now, you can carry. That sign is of none effect, correct?
That is correct. If you don't have a permit in Arkansas, the no gun signs don't apply to you. It only applies if you have a permit.
Because we are lawfully present.
And then we'll be lawfully present.
The person that goes to that class.
So Mark,
you know about, right?
Mark, you and I will walk into a mall, okay? I don't have a permit, you do.
Right.
Someone attacks and starts a mass shooting. You're faster on the draw than me. You draw your weapon, engage the shooter and take him out. You weren't lawfully present. You had no ability to stand your ground. However, if I would have been faster on the draw and engaged him, I don't have a permit, I would have been lawfully present.
Because he's attached it to this so-called enhanced permit?
Well, the only place in the statutes where it talks about no gun signs and things of that nature is in the concealed handgun carry license statutes that do not apply, and they say that do not apply unless you have the permit.
Now, the thing I want to reiterate here, though, guys, is that most citizens of Arkansas, and Tim, hopefully you'd agree with me, and Mark as well, that they're doing this because they're good citizens. They're law-abiding citizens. They want to do what's right. They want to have access to be able to carry to any place that they want to go, concealed. But yet they don't realize, and even the the gun shop owners who actually do these classes, they're thinking this is the right thing to do because that's what we've heard over and over again. But in essence, what it's doing is taking away our freedom with just the posting of a sign. And it's like, do you think a criminal's going to go see that and say, oh no, it's the dreaded sign, we got to put our guns up? That's lunacy.
See, it's even worse than that. With the enhanced, they did away with the requirement of the sign.
Oh no.
If they make their wishes known that they don't want weapons there, there's no longer, it's got to be a specific size sign, like it used to be. Mm-hmm. It says otherwise express their wishes for no weapons being there. So in other words, you attend church and say you're sick one Sunday and don't go, and they had a meeting saying, you know what, we don't want weapons in our church. Well, you come back the following week and you're carrying your weapon. are you going to be able to stand your ground? Because the church has made their wishes known, no weapons allowed. Now,
And
keep in
basically it
mind,
becomes your word against theirs. They could
Now-
even
now
say,
keep
well, I
in-
told you, you didn't hear it.
keep in mind, if you don't have a permit, that's not an issue. You can carry in there without a permit, without permission. So do you see how convoluted they've made this because of, and I believe it's chasing the dollar. And they want good citizens to be able to prove that they're even better citizens. That's why I'm talking about these are egregious gun laws that shouldn't be on the books. They should be repealed. I shouldn't have to demonstrate that I'm not only a good citizen, I'm an extra special citizen. I want the enhanced license.
We've already had this, gone through this with the poll tax. And everybody understood that the government should not charge you to exercise a fundamental right. You should be able to vote without having to pay a poll tax. And everybody
Absolutely.
understands that. And now they want to do it again, but somehow they want to nickel and dime you to carry a gun. And I will say this, what's coming next, because you said very, very correctly, the state legislators are chasing federal dollars. They did it on Obamacare after promising everybody they wouldn't. They did it on Obamacare. And now what the federal government's going to do is try to attach a bunch of money to red flag laws to get states to pass red flag laws.
Mhm.
And I can just see Bryan King would never yield to that. Bob Ballinger would, in my mind, he would think, hey, there's a way I can thread the needle here and make a good bill. And I can say can expand gun rights and we can still get this money. I can just see that.
No
Well,
question.
that's how the enhanced came about. It was a simple campus carry bill in 2017 that said if you were over 21, you had your permit, just a regular permit, you could carry on college campuses. Walmart, the Southeastern Conference, the governor, they all were shocked. The SEC, if y'all recall, was talking about boycotting Arkansas, and Bob stepped up to the plate to rescue Arkansas, and enhanced carry was his solution. Well, it has so many loopholes and exceptions to it. No wonder that Walmart, the governor, and the SEC are okay with it, because it doesn't do what it says it would do.
I see a pattern here. And Senator Ballinger's supporters, they're always bragging about, well, he sponsored 104 bills last time. And he, the vast quantity of bills he sponsors. And I'm thinking he needs to slow down. He did what you're talking about. He did the same kind of thing in 2015. There was this religious freedom bill. Everyone was afraid because in Colorado, they were arresting cake shop owners because they didn't want to bake a cake for a homosexual wedding or what have you. And that was because Colorado had state law that made sexual orientation a protected class. Arkansas didn't have that. So there was really no need for that kind of thing here. And he wrote this law, but before he wrote the law, if you owned a private business and you didn't want to do business with anybody, you didn't have to. It was undefined rights. Same thing with carry. We had undefined rights. He writes a bill that starts putting limits on them in the name of giving you that right. It really limited religious freedom, but he got credit for writing a bill that said, oh, I'm protecting religious freedom. It didn't. One, there was no need, just like with the gun thing, there was really no need for the law in the first place. And secondly, his bill was so toothless, it was the same bill that was the federal law that Barack Obama supported, but it's credit harvesting. It's not expanding your rights. It's not making your constituents more secure. It's giving your resume, is pumping the politician's name up.
It's pride. It's pride.
Bryan King not going to do that kind of thing.
Bryan King stood up against the NRA, and he stood up against Bob Ballinger, and he opposed the enhanced carry, not because he's against guns, but because he knew it was a bad bill. That's quite honestly why we endorsed him, because he had that type of courage, knowing the NRA was going to knock him, knowing the NRA was going to give Bob credit. And I'm going to be honest with you guys, any politician in Arkansas that claims an NRA rating and proclaims it loudly, I would be very leery of that. It doesn't mean what you think it means. That means that they're willing to play ball with the establishment. They're willing to make compromises to pass legislation that probably doesn't do anything.
We just
I'd be very concerned about that.
You mentioned two things right then, and so did Mark mention it. One is pride, building your resume, and being able to stand up and then listen to your constituents versus listening to the NRA. Tim, you've been down there, you've worked with both of them for many, many years now. I want to ask you point blank, of the two, and give me your personal experience. Give us, the audience, the personal experience you've had with who will listen to you legislatively, and who do you think is prideful, and who is the one that's humble and will listen, and who builds a resume, and who tries to stop the bills. Because to me, stopping the bad bills are more important than writing a bunch of legislation. I know you all agree.
When Stand Your Ground came out this past session, when I was made aware of it, I started calling the sponsors, Bob and Representative Pilkington, and trying to establish a dialogue. I did get to speak to Representative Pilkington about it. Bob wouldn't take my calls, so much so that I wound up testifying against the bill in committee, which sounds kind of ludicrous for the vice president of the leading gun rights organization in Arkansas to testify against a so-called Stand Your Ground bill. At one point during the committee meeting, Bob told me I didn't know how to read law. I didn't understand what the laws meant. Now, keep in mind, 4 of the bills that I authored this last session were passed by the House and the Senate. At one point, Bob told me if I wanted to write laws so badly, I need to get elected.
What? He said what?
He said, I basically said I wasn't qualified to be criticizing him because I wasn't a lawmaker.
You're just only a citizen. I think sometimes something happens when they get down there. It's like the person that loses the election, they don't understand that the citizen is the boss. They're the people in charge. A senator or representative is supposed to be a servant of the people, not that they have to look down their noses at us, or that we should feel inferior to them. That just blows me away.
Half these guys, the bills with their name on it just got handed to them by a lobbyist anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like they're great experts at writing bills. A lot of them are just passing on what was given to them. There's 2 types of ways that I write a bill. One of them will be initiated by Gun Owners of Arkansas. We'll identify a need, something that we're trying to expand rights on, and we'll sit down and hammer out legislation and then find sponsors that agree with us. We'll sit down and have conversations, call friendly legislators. Hey, I know you're for guns. What do you think of this bill? And then we'll go through that process and they'll pick it up and carry it for us. The second way is legislators will call us and say, hey, I need a bill written. So both of those happen. And I understand that some legislators completely write every little sentence of every bill that they write. I get that. But usually a bill making process is a joint venture between citizens, between groups, between lawmakers, before it ever gets to, even being debated upon. There's a lot that goes into it. Mm-hmm. I'm going to tell you right now, Bob doesn't speak to us. He won't take our calls. He won't sit down with the largest gun group in Arkansas. But he sure is proud to say the NRA backs him. Well, I guess so. They gave him bad legislation and he promoted it for him.
And it was a fundraising mechanism for him, really. True or false?
What you said about how it was ironic that you were there testifying against an enhanced carry bill. Think about candidates like Bryan. The average person doesn't understand and thinks, oh, well, Bob Ballinger must be the pro gun rights guy because the NRA is for him and because he's testifying against enhanced carry bills. And it's totally the opposite of the truth. They arrange these pictures to do the right thing. You've got to look like you're doing the wrong thing.
That is correct. Especially, and that's what the NRA does. The NRA is bullies. And if you in any way question the legislation they're pushing, which they've only done a couple in the last 6 years, but if you in any way question it or try to hold that up in committee to make it a better bill, come re-election time, they'll give you a downgrade. Even though it's not that you weren't trying to expand gun rights, you just thought this provision was bad, or hey, we need to rethink this. This can be better written. Well, then they will paint you as opposing gun rights. And it's just not true. Bryan King opposed the enhanced carry because he thought it was a bad bill, and it was. Here we are 5 years later, and we still don't have a court decision yet on whether or not it's enforceable. It's been challenged 3 times in court, and we're still waiting. Can a city disregard it or not? It was a bad bill, but somehow he was knocked by the NRA because he opposed a bad bill. And then, then Bob gets to go out and say, well, look at this good bill. The NRA supported it, and my opponent, he opposed it. That's
So
disingenuous.
in your mind, then who's the more effective legislator?
Well, I'm going to say this. One of the most important things a legislator can do is not give in to the call to do something. One of the most important things a legislator can do is do nothing. They're running somewhere around 2,000 bills a session, and we expect the citizens of Arkansas to know these laws. So Bob is very prolific in bill writing. What do you say, a couple hundred last session?
104.
104,
Okay.
and he passed 68 new laws. Now,
104.
if they're correcting something, I can see it, but I made a whole career out of basically fighting bad bills. I hardly ever wrote any bills. I was just trying to kill all the bad ones and warn people.
It's astounding to me that conservatives think effectiveness is getting a bunch of new laws passed, getting the laws changed every time. I mean, there's nothing conservative about the laws constantly churning and being, adding to the laws. So, and especially if the guy's writing bad bills, maybe he needs to slow down and make fewer bills that are better instead of more bills and say, look how many bills I wrote. But everything about this is frustrating because they make what is doing wrong, they make it seem like what's doing right. And doing the right thing, they make it seem like you're doing the wrong thing. So the voters in this race, you really have to be discerning.
Bob brought another piece of legislation last session. It was mirrored on the Kansas law of 4 years ago that said you could have fully automatic weapons if they were manufactured in Arkansas. You could have silencers if they were manufactured in Arkansas. And there were a couple of gentlemen in Kansas, when Kansas passed that law, that are actually doing federal time right now because the state of Kansas had no enforcement mechanism attached to it. Well, Bob did the same legislation in Arkansas this last time, and people say, well, Bob Bellinger made it where I can own a fully automatic weapon. Well, no, he didn't. And someone can go to penitentiary if you follow what Bob's bill intended. The state can't stop the feds from enforcing federal law. And he didn't even prohibit the state agencies from helping enforce the federal law.
Oh my goodness.
He just said it was legal in Arkansas as long as it was manufactured in Arkansas. Now, the average citizen they're working 5-6 days a week. They're trying to raise their kids. They're going to church. They're trying to do the right thing. They hear this bill that says, hey, Senator Ballinger's made it where I can carry a gun in more places. That's good. Hey, Senator Ballinger made it to where I can own a fully automatic weapon without paying the tax and asking the federal government. Hey, that's great. The average citizen don't have time or the ability to monitor these actual bills and laws that are being passed. And they hear a catchy title, stand your ground. Yeah, but, there's always, like Paul Harvey said, the rest of the story. And the average person don't have the opportunity to hear the rest of the story until it's too late.
So there's some Arkansans who could take Bob's press releases about himself seriously and make a mistake that could cause them to spend decades in prison because they were trusting what he's calling the title, that it really did what he was saying.
I'm convinced that there will be otherwise law-abiding citizens in prison because they thought they had the ability to stand their ground, and it's going to wind up to prosecutorial discretion to decide whether or not they were lawfully present. That scares me.
That too. Tim, we were talking about this yesterday, and you were talking about there was 6 steps you had to go through to make sure that you could stand your ground. Could you elaborate on that a little bit?
I don't have the law right here in front of me. It's 52607, 52606, and 52608. That's the self-defense laws in Arkansas. Basically, you got to be lawfully present. You can't be considered the initial aggressor. You can't be involved in other criminal activity. You can't be a felon in possession of a weapon, which I find amazing because that's illegal, right? Felons can't possess weapons. But Bob's bill, the law now says unless you're in your home. So he kind of legalized felons to have weapons in their home, maybe. That hadn't been to court yet, but that's what it says. And then the other one, if you're a gang member or participating in gang activity.
And doesn't it say you have a responsibility to retreat, or is that in there? Or
52607, the original self-defense law said if you were on your home or curtilage, you had no duty to retreat. It said otherwise that you had a duty to retreat if you could do so in complete safety. Bob's bill took all of that language out. And here's my concern. We don't have model jury instructions yet. So when someone goes to, tries to claim self-defense, we're going to find out what it means exactly. But my concern is, I think I can stand my ground, right? But if it turns out that I'm not lawfully present, or a prosecutor tries to say that I'm somehow, the initial aggressor.
You said something bad about them on Facebook. You're the initial aggressor.
I don't know, but they didn't define those terms, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm saying, because they didn't define it. And we live in a society of, microaggressions. Let's get all freaked out about some microaggression.
The law says I can use lethal force to defend myself or another person from a violent felony or serious physical harm if I'm lawfully present, and the 6 criteria. But it doesn't say what if I'm not? What if I can't claim one of those 6 criteria? Well, the old standard was if I could, I didn't have to retreat unless I could do so in complete safety. Well, there's no longer that in the law now. I don't have that as a backup. So now if I'm not lawfully present, my concern is, and we will find out in court at some point, that if I'm not lawfully present, then I have a duty to retreat. If I can't stand my ground, and there's nothing there in the law, and the law says what it says, it doesn't say what you should have made it say. There's nothing there. So if I can't claim that self-defense, that stand my ground, then I'm afraid you're going to have a duty to retreat, whether you know it or not.
Could lead to a lot of trouble.
It literally, his gun rights bill literally reduced people's ability to defend themselves.
But it says stand your ground.
You mentioned earlier, Mark, and you as well, Tim, that not everybody writes those laws down there. I mean, I was there when a legislator, they would come with a lobbyist from a corporation, and the bill would be, this thick. And they'd say, would you run this? We've had all of our attorneys look at it, and they know what's good about it, and they will testify, and they will literally get up and they say, Tim, you've seen this, where they'll say, well, I've got my expert witness here. And the guy sitting next to him, it's not the legislator that can answer the question. It's the lobbyist that wrote the bill. And the lobbyists are concerned about all of our rights and freedoms. Or is it the lobbyists really concerned about, are they concerned about their own special interests,
Right.
And people need to understand that it's a different culture down there than what we sometimes think it is, or what campaigns let us believe that it is. It's a totally different culture.
It's a contact sport, that's for sure.
Yeah, that's what they used to say, full contact sport. So I want to be very clear with the voters of District 28, Senate District 28 of Arkansas. They're going to be going to this election. Early voting starts tomorrow on Tuesday, June the 14th, and the election is June 21st. So I want to be very, very clear, Tim, from what you're saying, gun owners of Arkansas, executive vice president, who would you trust and who have you dealt with that would be the guy that you think is the most, Christian in his behavior, the most humble, the person that would listen, and the person that tells it like it is, tells the truth?
We don't often gain friends by being honest, and Bryan King is not afraid to be honest. He's a man of his word. He's a man of integrity. There's a reason we endorsed him. It wasn't because we had a grudge against Bob. It's because Bob writes bad legislation, and he does so in a compromising way while being misleading in the title of the legislation. He doesn't accomplish the goals he says he's going to with his legislation. And that's a problem. And Bryan don't do that. Bryan does what he says. There's a reason we endorsed him. He's the man for the job. I'm going to tell you, this is an important race. Bob doesn't need to be back down there. Bryan needs to be back down there. Arkansas needs Bryan there and not Bob. If you somehow question what he's done, he feels like it's an attack. When we testified against his stand your ground, it was not a personal thing. It just wasn't.
He got pretty mad about it.
He got upset. Yeah. He's the smartest guy in the room. We should defer to him.
Well, and the thing that surprised me is I can't believe you testified against my bill, yet he never wanted to talk with you about it in the first place. So what are you supposed to do except meet him at the committee,
We tried, we reached out. I talked to 3 or 4 different senators to try to set up a meeting. We went back and forth over the phone, went through the House, got, Pilkington trying to get to Bob, and Bob had no interest in meeting and sitting down. He just thought we were irrelevant. Here's the thing with Bob. He's counting on the public to believe the NRA endorsement. There's a lot of legislators that have turned the NRA loose, that they don't really care about the NRA. But there's some that are counting on the public not understanding what the NRA has become. And that's counting on the ignorance of the voters. It'd be a lot better to say what you've done, right? Instead of they endorsed me. Well, why did they endorse you? You know, you understand what I'm saying?
Right,
And,
right. You know, I haven't
um,
been a member of the NRA since 2004 when that happened.
Yeah,
I
Yeah.
just like, I'm done. And there was many people that the Republican Party at that time, you know, they didn't give us money either because they thought, well, can he win? The NRA didn't give us money because we don't know if he can win. I'm so glad that the founding fathers of this nation didn't think, you know, I don't know if we can beat England or not. So we just, you know what I'm saying?
Right, right.
You know, they gave up everything for freedom. And now we can't hardly get people to listen to more than 30 seconds or a minute of a commercial. And that's how we're going to choose freedom and choose truth. That just doesn't make any sense.
What did they risk? Their lives, their fortunes, and their sacred honor?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know, that's everything.
And Bryan, I think, has shown that he's willing to risk his sacred honor and do what's right, no matter the cost to him, you know.
It's hard in 2017 to buck the NRA. He was willing to do it. It's not as hard now, but you got to think about that. 2017, he had no problem saying this is a bad bill. I'm not going to vote for this. It passed. I mean, because folks were scared to vote against it. You know, you got the governor twisting arms. You got, you know, the NRA
and Bob keeps beating Bryan up, saying he missed out or he didn't vote or he missed out on enhanced carry, but he spoke up, I guess you said, in committee against it.
Yeah.
And people don't know that he was in the committee doing that, speaking out against it. But yet, you know, and maybe Bryan knew he was going to take a ding for it.
Oh, he knew he was going to get dinged.
Mhm.
Linda took a ding for it. And she was the one that wrote the original campus carry bill, but they dinged her because she didn't support the enhanced. It was a bad bill.
And then he hijacked it. Bob hijacked that bill.
He hijacked that campus carry and just totally just destroyed it. Please read that bill. Read that law. Read 322. You need to read it. You need to read it and see what I'm talking about. It is atrocious legislation. And now he's going around proclaiming how great it is. That just,
like you said, it's all platitudes. So, Mark, thanks for being with us today. Tim, really appreciate it. Voters that's going to get ready to vote for the Senate District 28, pray God to give you wisdom. You know, this is a very important election and all of them are important. But before we leave, Mark, would you like to tell us where we can look for some of your books?
Yeah, Journey on the Outside, My Life as an Activist at Amazon.com. Same thing with my localism books. The documentary, we don't know yet. It's coming soon.
And the localism book is fantastic. Good policy. Tim, would you share with us your website and how you can become a member and that type of thing?
Gunownersofarkansas.org. It's all lowercase. Gunownersarkansas.org. All lowercase. It's $30 a year for a membership, which gives you 50% off of self-defense fund carry insurance, which is very important if you ever have to use your weapon. Not one nickel is used for administrative costs, for salaries, or all this money goes to help regain our rights here in Arkansas. It's probably one of the best investments you'll ever make because we're going to win this battle at the state level, regardless of what happens in Washington, D.C. If we elect good folks and we take back our state, what happens in D.C. doesn't matter. And we're going to win this battle one state at a time.
Yeah. And I can attest your presence down there is invaluable. And I think all of us actually, just for what you've already done and sounding the alarm on these bills, along with Bryan, we need Bryan back in there, guys. If we want the truth to be known and tell it like it is, it's not some dog and pony show. Yeah, this is a real deal. And Bryan's a real deal. You've got guys that can attest to that have been down there as well, that we can tell you what it's like. Pray you get out and vote. And if you vote for Bob, don't show up. No. Anyway, thank you guys for being. I held it back for a long time, guys. Thank you, guys. All right.
I appreciate it, guys.
God bless.
That's why they hated you. Outstanding.
See that? That's that.
Yeah.
That's that new 45.
Hang on just a second. we're having a gun contest now.